Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome to tonight's meeting on February 22nd, 2022. Tonight's meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, a copy of which is posted on the back wall. First item of business would be approval of the minutes held on February 8th, 2022. Any questions, comments, corrections?
There was one little typo that I pointed out to Mary. She
Okay.
said she would take care of nothing.
Okay, duly noted.
Otherwise, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Auditors to approve the minutes, seconded by Sherman. Roll call.
Arterburn,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Galloway,
Yes.
Radcliffe,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 0 against. Item number 3, comments by the public. If there's anybody wishing to speak to anything that is not otherwise on the agenda. Seeing none, we will move to item number 4, presentation by Rauner Associates of the audited financial statements for the fiscal year 2020 to 2021. Actions after. All right,
There we go.
it's getting better.
You have to turn it on first.
This one?
Yep, you have to turn it on.
Point it up at the deal.
We went over this, Trevor.
There you go.
This is, yeah.
We went over this.
This is always worth the price of admission right here.
This is what you came for. Okay. We're in the jar. Oh, wait.
It'll warm up in a second.
Okay.
I hope.
Wednesday?
Yeah. We didn't budget for projector.
Wait and see what they say, whether we can afford it next year.
Yes.
All right. I think we're good. So, my name's Trevor Schuessler. Jeff Jung and Julie Peets are also here with me in case you guys have any questions that I can't answer. First off, I want to thank the board for giving us the opportunity to prepare the audit again this year. Also, moving us up on the agenda was much appreciated so we can get back to tax returns. Also want to thank David and Lori and Lane and really the entire office staff for all of their help in getting the audit completed. I'd say overall the audit went really smoothly, especially considering all of the position changes that took place across the accounting team this year. Really everything from fixed assets to account reconciliations to payroll was all really clean. I would say the bulk of our adjustments related to moving the financials from cash basis over to an accrual basis to get them in line with governmental accounting standards. So I guess following the approval of the audit tonight, we'll go ahead and get it submitted to the Nebraska State Auditor's Office ahead of the deadline, which is March 31st. So then I think you guys have copies of the audit report. So within that audit, there's going to be 2 components that are required by governmental accounting standards. The first component is the independent auditor's report, which is going to be the very first page of the audit. And really the main thing to point out on that is that we did issue an unmodified opinion, meaning that the financials were presented fairly in all material respects. The second component that you're going to see in there, which is actually at the very end of the audit, is going to be the report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And then in addition to those 2 items, the one other thing you're going to see in that audit report is the one that's inserted just loosely in the front cover. And basically what that is that's our management letter. So during the course of the audit, we provide management with some constructive suggestions as part of just the ongoing process of modifying and improving the city's procedures and operations. And then, like I said, we communicate that in that separate letter to the management. So in that letter that's loosely inserted in there, there's 3 things that I just wanted to point out quickly in case you guys have any questions on those. And it's basically our 3 comments to management that we wanted to note down. And the first was that the city had uninsured cash balances in the amount of $565,533 as of year end. So the main cause of that uninsured cash balance was basically the bond proceeds for the Link 17J project that were received right at the end of the year. And that is something we look at as a point in time right at the end of the fiscal year. So I'm sure throughout the entire year that wasn't the case, but with that big influx of cash right before year end, there was that uninsured cash balance. But we have been talking with Lane, and I know he's been working with the bank to make sure that that gets addressed and isn't an ongoing issue. And there's a couple different ways that they can work through that. The second comment that you're going to see there is that the city exceeded their overall expenditure budget. And the main thing I want to say on that is that sounds bad when you go over budget, but really the only thing that caused you guys to go over budget was you did refund that bond in the last fiscal year, basically to take advantage of the lower interest rates. So for accounting purposes, you guys, on a cash basis, they see the cash of the new bonds coming in, but for an accounting purpose, we have to kind of gross up that transaction, show the new proceeds coming in and payment of the old bond off. So basically, because of that accounting entry we made to show the payment of the old bond, being paid off, that created, or that resulted in you guys going over budget. So that's very common for us to see. We had a lot of schools that refunded bonds, a lot of the villages that refunded bonds over the last 2 years due to the low interest rates. Really, the only comment related to that is if it ever happens again, which probably I don't see happening anytime soon, the city just needs to remember to go in and amend their budget as soon as that bond refunding takes place, if they are over budget. So, and then the last management point, we just wanted to point out, and you'll see it later in some of the historical trending graphs that we show, is just basically addressing the ongoing losses within the sewer and landfill funds. So, do you guys have any questions on those 3 management points?
No.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to point it at it or at
I
the.
told you, we're perfect to nail it. I can do it.
Okay. So that's a little hard to see, but what this first slide is going to show the statement, the government-wide statement of net position. So if you're looking at your audit book there, that's going to be Exhibit A towards the front. And basically what this statement does is it's kind of the equivalent of a balance sheet, and we break it out, or it is broken out between governmental type activities and business type activities. So when we say business type activities, that's talking about the electric, water, sewer, and landfill funds, and then basically government-wide is going to be everything else. So the main points that I want to point out on this is that for governmental activities, total assets increased by approximately $2.6 million, and total liabilities increased by approximately $1.2 million. So the increase in the total liabilities is basically a mixture of existing debt getting paid down and then the new debt related to that Link 17J project. And then for business type activities, assets remained relatively flat, while liabilities decreased by approximately $1.1 million. Next slide, please, Lade. So this is going to be Exhibit B in the audit report, and this is the statement activities, which is basically the equivalent of the city's income statement. So a couple of notes on that is for governmental activities, revenues increased by $1.8 million from the prior year, and expenses increased, but at a smaller rate, by $774,000. For business type activities, revenues decreased by $278,000, and expenses decreased by $169,000. And I guess to point out that the changes in revenue were primarily the result of increased operating grants and contributions, as well as less transfer activity between the governmental activities and business type activities. So really the biggest thing, I guess, that I want to point out on this slide is based on the current year results, there was an overall net increase in net position of a little over 2.8 million. So it is hard to read there, but basically that increase now is now saying that city assets exceed liabilities by $82.3 million. So overall, things are trending in the right direction from a financial standpoint. And then, so these next few slides, I'm going to move through them pretty quickly, but feel free, I guess, to interrupt me if you have any questions on these. Really what the rest of these slides are going to show is just some historical trends, so you can kind of, I guess, see the direction that everything is moving overall. But this first slide is looking just at the governmental funds, so it's going to look at the excess or deficiency of revenues over expenditures. Obviously, I'm not showing all funds here, but the two main funds there are going to be the general and street fund, and obviously both of those have increased from the prior year and are really higher than they've been in the last 5 years. And on that last slide, the one thing to point out that the large increase that you're going to see in the general fund is really the result of increased tax revenues, increased grant revenue, and then even though there was an overall increase in expenditures for all government type activities within the general fund expenditures did actually decrease. The increase in the overall government type activities really is related to the 13th and Elm Street projects that were completed this past year. So then on the next slide, this is really just going to show a breakdown of the different sources of revenue within the government activities. And really the only big change that you would see if we were to put up last year's graph next to this is that operating grants and contributions basically increased from that 18%, or increased to 18%, where it was only 11% last year. So this is a really common trend that we've seen with all the cities and villages that we work with, and that's really all comes back to all the COVID-related funding that you guys have received over the past year. So the largest of the grants that you guys received due to COVID was the American Rescue Plan Act, and that provided funds of just over $541,000, I believe. As of the end of the year, you guys had actually not spent any of those funds, so is it till 2024 that you guys have to spend those? So obviously that's probably something that's on your to-do list, is to figure out the best way to spend those. And then Lane gets to deal with all the fund reporting requirements that goes along with that. So there are a lot of, I think the smaller villages have really struggled to identify ways to spend that money, because there are a lot of restrictions placed on it. But based on some conversations with David, I think he has some ideas, and I'm sure you guys will also. So on the next slide then, this is just going to show a breakout of expenditures and where the dollars are going within the governmental type activities. Really, everything is fairly consistent with last year. No big changes that I would think we'd need to call out on that. So then on the next slide, this is going back to the business type activities, or the proprietary funds. So like I said, that's including electric, water, sewer, and landfill. And really the only thing I want to point out here, it goes back to that management point, and why we made it is basically the continued losses that are within the sewer and landfill funds. So our comment on that is basically to look at operations and try to come up with ways so that those two funds aren't continuing to lose money for the city. So on the next slide, again, just a breakout of the types of revenue. Obviously, the electric fund counts for the bulk of the income within business type activities. Not a lot of changes there. And then on the next slide, again, just looking at expenses, the expense side of it, electric, where it had 64% of revenue, accounts for 62% of expenditures. And again, not a lot of changes from the prior year. It's remained pretty consistent. Okay, so the next slide, these last three slides The only thing I want to point out on this is basically it's kind of looking at the historical trends of overall debt. So given that there was a little bit of increase in debt for governmental activities and the decrease in business type activities, overall debt actually remained relatively consistent due to the increase in one and decrease in the other. So on the next slide, this is just going to now look at debt within governmental activities, and basically what it's showing here is how is that ratio of debt compared to total net position and total liabilities, so, or total revenues, excuse me. So even though there was, I guess, that slight increase of 1.1 or 1.2 million in overall debt, the ratios of both those liabilities to both net position and total revenues did actually improve. It's a little tough to see on that graph, but again, that goes back to why overall net position is increasing. So then on this last side, not a whole lot to call out there, but this is looking at debt to equity and debt to revenue within the business type activities, and really the only thing you'll notice there is that the long-term debt within those business type activity funds has just continued to decrease as it gets paid down. So really I made it a little bit shorter than last year. I kind of just want to touch on the high points, but do you guys, I guess, have any questions, or is there anything you saw in the audit report that you want to discuss or address?
Anybody, anything?
So our investment income is 0 or negligible.
Your investment income?
Yeah, on one of these pie charts.
I don't remember exactly dollars wise, but when you compare it to overall revenues, it's going to be a really small share, because if you think about it, I mean, the bulk of your guys' money is going to come from grants, or it's going to come from taxes. I would say the overall investment balance, I think it performed well this past year. I don't know if...
The only comment I'd make there is that interest rates were...
Interest rates were very high.
Right.
I figured that was culprit.
But yeah, so I wouldn't discount the amount of revenue you guys are earning off of those investments, just as compared to all the other income streams you guys have. It's pretty relatively small. So.
Any other questions for him? Bob, anything?
No.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yep.
Appreciate the time and effort you guys put into it.
Thanks.
That was a lot quicker than Rob's.
Someone go ahead and catch the lights, I think. Yeah, I think we do. Is that correct, Jay? We need a motion to accept the audit?
That's correct.
So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to accept previous year's audit. Motion by Mr. Radcliffe, second by Mr. Olson. Roll call.
Was it Olson first that made?
Radcliffe Olson.
Radcliffe, Olson. I had to take his last name.
Sherman?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Radcliffe?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Arterburn?
Yes.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 0 against. All right, done with the fun stuff. Item number 5, consideration of Economic Development Citizens Advisory Review Committee appointment.
Okay. As you know, we've posted this because we had 2 members resign recently, one being Kathy Arterburn, the other one being Carol Porter. So we're...
Kathy's name.
What's that?
Misspelled Kathy's name.
C-A-T-H-Y?
It's got a K in it.
Oh, whoops. My bad.
So let her see that.
Yeah, don't tell her about that, huh? Anyway, we did post the position. We have 1 person that applied. I did get another application today, so there's a good chance this will be, whether you approve this one or not, will be on the agenda next meeting as well. So here's the issue. Rick Hickenlively has been on the Economic Development Citizens Advisory Committee in the past. He stepped down here, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago. and is interested in, now you can hear me, is interested in resuming back onto that board, but his address is not Sydney, and he would feel no heartache if the council has an issue with that. He was on the committee before with this same mailing address, but his address is actually in Sunol. He does own property in Sydney, but does not make that his residence. So I told him I would bring it before the council, and if the council had an issue with that, because it does state, I think, that there's supposed to be a registered voter in Sydney, and that would make him not one. It would make him a registered voter in Sunol. So
That is a requirement.
That's what
That's
I'm
what-
looking at.
Yeah, it
But
is.
I think it is,
I think
and
it
I don't
is a
think you have that
requirement.
option. I think you,
Well, and that's
I don't know how he was on it before, but he was for quite a long time
I was gonna
in the same
defer to-
situation, so I'm not sure why, but
defer to council on that.
He was on it with me at the same time.
let's see
Did
here.
he change addresses?
No, he says he's always had this same, so I don't know if that was just somehow overlooked before. But he would have no heartache with it. He just said he thought, I was on there before. If it's okay, it's okay. If it's not, it's not. So it's not a big deal if the council wants to say that. And I will be bringing another one that does have a Sydney mailing address at the next meeting too.
Well, it's whatever the attorney said.
Yep, perfect.
let me,
I'm pretty sure it does say registered voter for all city
yeah,
boards.
I'm just fairly certain that's correct, but let me see if I can find the actual statute.
Yeah, that on top of your head. That 62B.
Yeah, I think it's like towards the front.
I think it's 266, but I'm not sure. So.
266.
You making that up?
No,
Oh, okay.
266B. So it says two.
Credibility.
Did his homework?
That's Commissioner.
I know that's what it says in my handbook in there.
I'm right in the 200s, but it's not 266. So. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not certain you can do that. I think
Yeah,
it's statute that says you
yeah, I
can't, you
think
have
I
to
think
do
it is
this.
too.
There's a reason for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to circumvent the process.
If you want to go on to the next item and then we can come back to this, I'll try and find you the
Who's
exact
next on
statute.
the agenda? Can you move the mic?
Pardon me?
Can you move the mic? Come back?
There hasn't even
I
been-
think it is. I just don't know the statute. I'm sorry.
We'll circle back to that.
Okay, perfect.
Item number 6. 6 and 7.
We can leave the good stuff for last, right?
One of the checks in the cover, the first one. but- Item number 6, consideration of solar PV installations.
Good evening, council. Mike Palmer, electric superintendent. Back in December, we came to you with a potential solar PPA agreement. You directed us to look at other options. Since that time, we did reach out to another developer, and they did supply a proposal for us. However, the original purchase power agreement from Sand Hills is still cheaper. Basically, we just want to get your guys' understanding of which direction you want to go. This is nothing that staff feels like we have to do or anything like that. We just thought we would bring it to your attention. We see this as a small hedge for potential rate increases in the future. This is only 5% of our purchase power, so it's not gonna make or break the fund one way or the other. When we originally brought this to you in December, I did mention that I did see this as a hedge. Since that time, Means energy rate has actually increased 6%. The Sand Hills purchase power agreement would be lower than that of what we're purchasing from Mean. If I had a crystal ball and could tell you what was going to do 25 years in the future, I probably wouldn't be working here. But So we're just kind of wanting to get your understanding of which direction you want us to go. They have supplied a contract, a lease purchase agreement, as well as a PPA agreement. And before we spend a lot of time or effort going through those agreements to make sure that they're to our likings and Jay's likings, we just wanted to kind of bring this before you. Burke did reach out to us, and I do have a couple. I did send him some stuff, so I'll supply that to you guys as well. No,
That's a good thing.
that's
That's a good thing.
that's the way it's supposed to be.
I'll ask you on the, probably you can ask, do we know of any other towns that have done one of these?
So currently, the original request for proposal was, just with this proposal itself, was for, I will, I'd also print this off, just so you guys can see what might be interesting to see. This is just our actual resource mix. So if you're interested in it, I thought you might be. The original request for proposal, this was for 10 communities, I believe. Since that time, it's about doubled because of pricing. About 10 more communities have jumped on board saying, hey, at this price, we want to see if we can get into this.
There's a bunch considering right now that we have, up and running.
No, so not with this particular agreement, none whatsoever. So they're still in the executing contracts phase. I think the COD on this would be December of 22, I believe, is when they want, if we would move forward, because of the production tax credits, they want to get it done this year because they've continued to taper off over the years.
But as far as type of contracts and structure of contracts, this would appear similar to other similar projects regardless of vendors?
Well, I mean, the potential, some, like LES, Lincoln Electric System, I know they're an owner-operator of a solar facility in Lincoln, so they actually purchased it. This would be, Sandhills under this purchase power agreement would be the owner-operator of that. We'd supply the land, and we would be obligated to take the offset of the electricity at the set rate for 25 years. Similar to our contract with Mean, which runs 30-plus more years.
Only up to 5%. We would be limited to 5%.
And that's through Mean.
Assuming it produces that much.
Yeah, if
Is that a
it,
monthly thing or a yearly thing? How do they determine that 5%? It's obviously it's some kind of more.
it's based off a yearly production, and it's based off kilowatt hours. So basically what Mean supplied Sandhills was our last year's usage. And it's based upon last year's usage. So if in the future our usage would go down, we'd still be grandfathered in. So if we produce more than 5%, we wouldn't be penalized for it because it's based off when it was installed.
Is there any, I know you don't have a crystal ball on this one, but is there any talk or any predictions that Mean would ever go, hey, you can now do 10%, 15%?
So we're a member owner of Mean, right? So it's basically what the board would wish. At that juncture, though, we are also we have to protect their assets and their liabilities. We have, from Mean's perspective, has assets that have to be paid for. So when they first passed this resolution allowing communities to go up, it was 2%. It's moved to 5% since that time in the last 3 years or whatever the time range is. It hasn't been real long because of community was wanting this. And some communities didn't want to do anything with renewables. So they've increased that cap to 5%. It could potentially go up. And then we could add on to the facility or put up wind that would be at council's discretion.
currently it would be limited to 5%. And you've stated already that we've seen increases of 6%.
Our energy rate, this coming April, will increase 6% from Means wholesale perspective. Don't quote that as a retail operation, that's just wholesale. So we're going to see our energy rate increase 6% from, it's in the memo.
And then there's something in here, you did include a couple, you include some 2% increases every.
So I tried to keep it relatively,
Go up some.
yeah, I tried to keep, so means rate projections only go out 5 years. They do have another 6% rate increase in 3 years. So they are proposing that in 3 years they are going to take another 6% rate increase on the energy side. That I included that in the first mean rate known because that's kind of what they're telling us. That's what we should start to plan for. And then I kept it flat for the 25 years after that. The next one, I assumed that 6%, and then every 4 years I increased a 2% rate increase. I think that's probably pretty conservative. I think it's probably going to be higher than that. I spoke with the CFO of Mean today, NMPP Energy, and she says typically what they're projecting long-term is 2% rate increases for the foreseeable future, every year. Obviously that won't be, and that kind of comes to the 6%, what they're expecting in 3 years. Obviously they're not probably going to ding you every 2 years, or every year for 2%, but every 3 years you could probably expect a 6% rate increase. So I think that, that assumed rate is probably fairly low.
And the
So we make the financials on this a little
Better. I mean, the way I see this really is, if the rate is at or below, we win. Well, there's no question, that's just the way it is. Even if it's at, I think it's still a win because we're doing, the environmental conscious thing, and we're producing solar, and we're producing some of our energy in-house, if you will. I think that's good for the community.
And the other thing is the solar contract only allows for a 0.5% increase per year. On the, what was, there was
Yes,
that was there.
yes.
Yeah, the
Yep.
Sandhills rate is what
Yep,
I'm
it's
saying.
0.5% increase per year.
Right,
And that would be baked into the contract.
right.
Yep, and those costs are, I included in the spreadsheet as well.
So I think when you look at a 0.5% on that side of it and a fluctuating on the other side, like you said, it's starting to look like a better deal.
I mean, it's not going to save a lot of money no matter what we do. It's not like it's going to be a windfall of money coming back to the city coffers because we put this project in. It's just not even.
And so, based on these numbers here with the increases every 2 years, the city basically saves $200,000 over 25 years. But we have to spend $80,000 up front for a transformer to get the thing going. So,
Right.
and that's it down to like $120,000. So financially, spread that over 25 years.
Yeah, exactly.
It's more of the, do we want to be solar, do we want to be more green?
Well, and the other thing.
And these could be conservative.
I think they are conservative,
They might
but
make a little more of a lease
I don't-
agreement
I mean-
for the land.
so a good example of it was when Kimball Wind went in. Council at that time bought a small percentage of Kimball Wind. We've actually paid a pretty high premium over the years for that wind over the last 20 years. We're starting to see renewables because of policies. We're starting to see renewables become more in line with traditional type energy sources, coal, natural gas, that type of energy. So, but we paid a premium for 20 years to be green. Under this scenario, I think it probably is going to be cheaper in the long run. It's not going to be a lot of money.
The other thing I was going to ask about, because you also mentioned that if they decide to scale the project bigger than what the contract calls for, then we would be in a land lease agreement with them if they wanted to make it bigger. So we would be receiving some revenue back on
You know,
that
at
end.
least right off the chute with them,
Yeah.
even with this one.
But that would be, the agreement for this one would be at zero cost to them.
Yes,
If they wanted to expand the footprint for Means portfolio, not for the city of Sydney's.
right.
And we're pretty Western Nebraska has really good sun. Even compared to the eastern part of the state, we are in, we're not quite as good as Arizona, but land's a lot cheaper here. So there's a balance there that these developers are putting into their numbers and saying, Western Nebraska is a good place to put solar just because of the sun and relatively cheap land cost. If Mean has kicked around the idea of wanting to tack onto this for their own portfolio for this rate, Sydney would probably be an ideal place to tack on, a couple megawatts of load. That at that point we would probably negotiate a land lease agreement with them to put that on our land. Again, we're not talking about a lot of money. I mean, it's not like they're not going to lease that for, tens of thousands of dollars a year, and and we could say no as well. I mean, if it's not something we don't want to tie up our land, that would be our option, obviously.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that there is another component to that that's possible in this scenario.
One thing I will add is this PPA is for a 25-year period. The land lease agreement will be for 35 years. So they'll have 2 5-year options because the useful life of one of these is 35 years. They would want to negotiate after 25 years another agreement with the city of Sydney, but if we say no, we're done with solar, they don't want to have to rip those out. They would have the right to remain in that location, and they would sell it to someone else if that was the wish at that time. They would be willing to look at the same things for 35 years if we wanted to. Just throwing that out there. Bert brought up because the other proposal was for 35 years.
So what's the term of our contract?
Through this particular,
This particular one?
it would be a 25-year,
25 years.
25 years. And again, this is, if council doesn't have an appetite for this, that's fine. That's not,
We're going to be purchasing power from Mean.
yep.
So it's one or the other.
One point is we're only talking about 5%. But we know that through the contract that rate can only go up 0.5% a year. That's locked into the contract. So there is a little bit of security with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, it's that known commodity price for 25 years. Means rate could go down 10%, it could go up 20%. I mean, it could fluctuate wherever over the next 25 years. We have no, I don't want to say control over that, but it is what it is.
What's the historics on that?
Mean was historically pretty cheap. Mean in the 2008 timeframe put a lot of. Mean historically was more of a purchase power arrangement, so they were buying. 2008 came around and power prices were the market was going through the roof. They put a lot of steel on the ground. So we have seen steady increases since that time. It's kind of stabilized when we kind of redid some rate structure over the last 3 or 4 years. In fact, 2 years ago, we did take a rate decrease. But I would think, the CFO literally told me, plan on 2% a year. But again, that's, that, a lot of it, I mean, in all honesty, does kind of go with administrations. who's in power in Washington does kind of dictate on what some of our prices, you know.
So the city's capital outlay would be?
Zero.
80,000?
80,000. Yeah, we would have to purchase the transformer from the solar array to our system. A rounded number of that would be 80,000 by the time you hook to the system. We're going to have some terminations and some cabling between our power line, but I would say that would cover it. The one thing that was kind of in discussions with Sand Hills and really I was kind of instrumental in is making sure, like, what happens if that transformer goes down? Like, we're not going to go buy 2 of them just in case.
Right.
They have come to the table and basically said they would take responsibility for the spare transformer because they're going to use them in different facilities. So we wouldn't have to basically have a spare. I mean, it's in their best interest to make sure that thing's cranking power. If it's not, they're not getting paid.
That will be in a contract somewhere that they will do that.
That's my understanding, is the discussion is moving that direction, because I flat out told them, I'm like, I wouldn't feel comfortable purchasing a spare transformer just for this to sit here for 35 years that we would never use, potentially never use.
So it would remain our transformer, it wouldn't become theirs property?
The original one would be our transformer. The spare, if the transformer went bad, took a catastrophic lightning strike, something like that, they would obviously replace it.
They would replace it.
Yep.
We just have to provide the original.
Yeah, exactly. Which, the useful life of a transformer, I mean, we have transformers, they should last 35 years.
Depends on the squirrels.
Yeah. I mean, there's,
Depends on.
depends on, I mean, the lightning will be,
What's happening?
yep.
Because that has happened, yeah.
What's your recommendation, Mike?
I mean, again, it's, I think that knowing this cost for 25 years, I think it will be relatively the same, if not lower, than means rate. So if we can save $200,000 under this scenario, $200,000, even though not a lot of money in 25 years, is still $200,000. And I think it potentially could creep, a little bit more. But I'm not here to tell you that this is going to save the city, thousands of dollars over
What are the
25
chances
years.
it becomes whatever you call it, a white elephant out there? That's not useful.
That would be, so in the contract itself, we haven't thoroughly gone through the contract. Because there wasn't a lot of, there didn't seem a lot of reason until we had your guys' blessing to start working towards a contract. But they would be responsible for decommissioning of this, returning the ground to the way they found it, or as close to possible. After, in 35 years, once the project is done and the solar panels, if they don't want to re-energize it, they would be responsible for removal, bringing the ground back up to snuff.
That would all be part of the contract.
That would all be part of the contract.
You just wouldn't want to have something out there not being used and
No, I'd say,
becoming an eyesore.
yep. One little tidbit, I don't know if you look through their executive summary there, which I thought was interesting, is they're going to, underneath the solar array would be a bee and butterfly habitat. So it's not going to be rock or anything, it's going to be some sort of, yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting. The other company didn't have that in there. But I'm sure they got some sort of funding for it too.
Right. Of course they do.
What about, I know the electric department has some other plans they're working on for some other projects. If we said yes to something like this, how much time and attention would this take away?
So this is,
They're going to build it, so
but there's going to be some legwork from staff. There's no question. We're going to have to,
Document review.
yeah, we're going to have to babysit the project and make sure that it's to our specifications and they're following the contract. Would it be something that we couldn't handle? I wouldn't say that. I mean, again, this isn't a project that I mean, if you guys' wish is to move forward and to do this, great. If it's not, that's understandable too.
Now, where do you think it's going to be?
So the potential site right now is East Elm. So it would be on the old landfill site is what we're proposing.
Basically right next door to the Table of Grace, across the road from
Yep.
them.
It would be between the Table of Grace and our pole yard. And our, yep,
Yeah, on the left side of the road, and Table Grace will be on the right side.
yep. There's an aerial in your was your aerial in the packet included? It should have been.
Yes.
Yep. I mean, that's the proposed site. That makes the most sense. It's ground that we feel that's probably, we won't have to mow anymore. I mean, it's not,
A lot of other use.
it's not ground we're using
And how
per
big
se.
is it? How many?
It would take the majority of that ground. So basically from East Elm up to the old landfill cap would be solar panels. But, I mean, most people do want to, when they put up a solar farm, most people want to see them. They want to know that so it would be an area that would be still visible, but kind of out of harm's way. Probably not a lot of chance for any
Not a lot
other
of chance
type of development in that area. I mean, but that is a consideration if that ground is tied up for 35 years.
So what are you asking us for?
Approval to go ahead and pursue a contract with Sandhills, is that what we're asking for?
At least to,
That's what we're
yeah,
asking.
and delve into it to see if, yeah, review the contract and see if it's something that we want to recommend, because I think the contract is substantial.
Yeah.
It'll be a large.
I mean, it's going to take some time to go through it.
So this isn't approval tonight, but are there any other questions before?
The equipment, who owns the equipment? Do they own it?
They do it. They own everything. The only thing we would purchase and own is basically from the point of delivery, the transformer to our lines, which would be not a lot of, we would have the transformer situated in an area where we didn't have a lot of cabling to our lines. They're responsible for O&M of all that.
Insurance, everything.
Yep. I mean, I did just, Burke brought up a good point. They did supply a bill transfer, and if we wanted to do it, it was $3 million upfront, give or take, and I mean, estimated O&M cost would be about 50 grand a year. So it would cost us over 25 years, $4.2 million, whatever that equates to. I mean, it's really not, it's not super feasible from you want to get what, you would get zero return out of that investment.
To your point, Brooke, was the question, will this time and energy take away from our, what we discussed about in budget session with our other energy?
Yeah. If we would decide to go ahead with those.
I don't think this will.
I mean, it's going to take some time and energy, but it's nothing, I really don't think it's anything
And
that
those
we
are
can't
also
handle.
projects that are very complicated and involve WAPA and everybody else too before we can get that going.
And we will probably, hopefully, be bringing something to you in the next couple months on that, just a little FYI. Working pretty hard and diligently, trying to get
I
that
thought that
done.
might have been later.
Yep, I mean, and that one will obviously take a lot more legwork. This is, I mean, really what we're asking for is, if this is something you want to dive in, or want to undertake, is we can go through the contracts with pretty much the understanding that if Jay and David are okay with the contracts and that you guys do want to sign the contract at the end of the day.
Right.
So it's not formal approval, but it's,
Well, and that's, if there's no other questions, I'll just phrase it this way. Is there a motion to pursue and review a contract with Sandhills Energy for the solar project?
So moved. Second.
Motion by Olson, second by Sherman. Roll call.
Galloway,
Yes.
Radcliffe, Olson, Arterburn,
Yeah, I think it's too early to say no, so, yes.
yes. Sherman,
Yes.
Motion carries 5 in favor, 0 against. So dig into that a little deeper, see what you find out. See if you can come up with a contract that you think is mutually beneficial to us as well as them, and we'll go from there.
So they will bring the contract back?
Yes.
Final approval?
For final approval, yes.
If you can pop back up to the Economic Development Citizens Advisory Review Committee.
I don't know, you had your shot.
So,
266?
Chapter 252 is the Department of Economic Development, and it says that it establishes the Citizen Advisory Review Committee, and that's pretty much all it says. And that means that the plan that was passed under that is going to be what says whether or not it has to be a citizen. So we need to look at that economic development plan, and that should tell you what your committee has to be. It is not by ordinance, it is by the plan.
But the plan would be the definitive rule
That's
by
correct.
statute then.
That's correct.
Can the plan be amended?
Who's got?
Depends on, I don't know the answer to that, Bob. I know that the plan is set up by statute, but I don't know whether the statute specifically addresses whether they have to be city members to be on that committee. But I will check into that. But our first step is we need to get that plan out and take a look and see what it says.
Do you want us to try to bring this back to you at a later point?
I think let's table it for now and bring it back when we have a little bit more clarification on that.
You gotta find that second person anyway, so.
I have another one.
You said you had another.
So we'll still be able to meet quorums if I bring another one to you next week that I know will pass.
Okay. Okay, so we'll table that issue. Item number 7, ACE check presentation.
All right, Mike Palmer, ACE representative for the City of Sydney. The Choice Gas Program is an annual program that gives customers the opportunity to choose a natural gas supplier that provides a pricing option that best suits their needs. Customers in the Choice Gas Program have a unique opportunity, something not everyone has. You have the power to choose your natural gas supplier and what you want to pay for natural gas. Public Alliance for Community Energy, ACE, encourages participation in Nebraska's gas program, which provides an opportunity for Nebraska customers on the Black Hills distribution system to choose their natural gas supplier. ACE was created in 1998 with 3 goals in mind: lower rates for consumers through competition, advocacy for the consumer by keeping abreast of issues that impact your gas bill, and potential direct benefit to communities through the Revenue Return Program. Since its beginning, ACE has worked tirelessly to meet these goals. At the January 2022 ACE Board of Directors meeting, the board voted to distribute $200,000 back to its members. Because of this action, $14,815, which represents Sydney's share of the ACE distribution for fiscal year 21-22, came back to the community. Since its inception in 1998, ACE has given back nearly $3.3 million to Nebraska communities, including $241,000 coming back to the Sydney. These funds have been helped to construct the Legion Park Pond and give monetary assistance to the Park Department with keeping the pond stocked with fish. Funds were used to assist in the fundraising effort for the Park Playground project. Most recently, we have used ACE funds for the new lights for baseball field number 4. ACE was formed by Nebraska communities for the primary purpose of providing local control and ensuring competitive choice to the consumers regarding natural gas supply. ACE is marking its 24th year in the Nebraska program. The selection period is set for April 1st through the 21st. Selection forms will be mailed out to all eligible customers prior to the start of the selection period. ACE is the only community-owned, not-for-profit supplier in the program. We encourage you to compare prices and pricing options during the selection period to receive the lowest rate and best pricing option for you. But remember, choosing ACE means you can have both a great rate and community impact. When you choose ACE as your natural gas supplier, you're keeping dollars in your community across the state and empowering your community. So without further ado, Roger, you want to come down and accept this on city's behalf? Yep.
It looks like she is.
Get ready, Brad.
Bada You did get those two, didn't you? That was kind of cute.
Take that to the bank.
Thank you.
Some editing coming in.
I'd also like just to mention a couple other things. We will be hosting so as I stated, advocacy for the consumer is something that's very important to ACE. And although we like people to choose ACE, we understand that they need to choose the best rate and company for them. We will be hosting an open house sometime in the coming month where we can talk to customers, hopefully educate the customers on what we do with the funds for ACE. And as part of that, we'll be, ACE is going to be supplying some sort of chamber box or something to that effect of a drawing for people that come in. There's also even potential discussion of across the whole footprint, ACE's whole footprint of maybe if you sign up for ACE, you might get some a free gas for a year for one customer. So they're trying to do some really unique things this year. We're seeing a lot of competition from the choice gas perspective, and that's good. That's what we're here for. But we're trying to kick people towards ACE a little bit more. So in the coming month, stay tuned, and we'll get something out to the public on when we'll host probably an open house right here. Well, and see, and that's one of the things with the open house is that we want to educate the customer. We understand that it's a cumbersome process. You might receive something from Black Hills Energy, which supplies wholesale, and you think that I need to choose. We have some, the Public Service Commission has dealt with some things over misleading types of that if you don't select now, the selection period is the 1st through the 21st. If you have that period, it's not you have that. What we want to get out to the customer more than anything is you need to select, whether it's ACE or one of the other ones. The rollover rate is usually multiple times higher than what you can get by selecting, and that's the way the program's allowed to run. So we want to get out there. We want to educate it and hopefully help the customer. I mean, that's what we're here for, advocacy. So, any other questions?
No, appreciate the work.
Perfect. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, item number 8, budget reports for January 2022.
Good evening, Council. Link Zire, Finance Director. I don't have a bunch to talk about tonight. I'll just kind of run through a few points. Start with property tax. That number looks low at this point in time. A lot of that is when it's received. The other part is my bad. I forgot to transfer from debt service over, so we're missing $117,000 sitting in debt service rather than general fund. Just kind of, I did it all. I did the journal entries like I did it all and then failed to actually do the transfer. So that's been corrected. So next month will look a lot better. But that did happen this month, so that's why that's so far down. Sales and occupation tax. This was our final month of that refund. So starting in February, and I've seen the numbers for February, that refund's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. So no $20-some thousand coming out of our sales tax every month. And we've been right on track, going up 8% every month. So I would anticipate that to stay the same currently. Fees for service, we're right in line where we have been for previous years. I did want to point out we are selling pool passes for this summer, and those are available at the city offices. If anybody wants to come pick one up, those are available now. In state, federal, county grants, this one varies from year to year. Pretty much right in line where we have been. Last year's a little bit bigger from the CARES Act public safety refund. And franchise admin fees, now that we've approved the audit, franchise fees will be recorded. And admin fees will come up again in March for that. And I did want to touch on a little bit on the general fund. Notice we're down 230,000-ish. Obviously, 117 of that was my failure to transfer or whatever. The other big portion of that from last year, why we're down, would be probably the CARES Act money. They did transportation. We got the $146,000 from for the public safety reimbursement. That's a large part of that reason we are probably where we are. And if you look at the overall in the financial statements, you notice it maybe looks a little worse than it did last year. A large portion of that as well is when I did the equipment reserve transfers. I didn't do those until like March or April last year, but I did them in October this year. Everybody wanted to get some purchases out of the way, so I did the equipment reserve transfers earlier this year than I did previous years, and so that kind of explains that big gap or whatever. I don't know, Burke may have noticed that. But yeah, they weren't done yet last year. I did them much earlier because I think everybody came October 2nd to ask you guys for their money. So I just took care of those a little bit earlier this year than I did last year. Plus I didn't know my left hand from my right last year. So any other questions for me?
How much you think the pool passes were?
Tom? What's a pool pass cost?
164, isn't that for a family?
Good job. Glad you're here, Tom.
And
What the heck of a deal?
golf memberships are also for sale.
Yep, and golf memberships are for sale as well too.
Burke wants to know how much those are. You probably already got one.
I don't have one yet, but I'll be getting one.
Those ones went up. I don't have that fee schedule right in front of me right
We're
now.
still a city councilman
So,
right
that's an under the table.
Well, we have a slush fund that Jerry's
Oh,
going
no, stop saying that.
I know how much she likes that word.
No. They did send me offers, so that's good.
Yeah, well.
Okay, any other questions for Lane on budget reports? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve budget reports for January 2022? Motion by Radcliffe, second by Arterburn, roll call.
Radcliffe,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes.
Arterburn,
Yes.
Sherman,
Yes.
Galloway.
Yes, motion carries 5 in favor, 0 against. Item number 9, consideration of city council vacancy.
You want me to go bring it up before you?
Whatever if you feel we want to talk about
Um,
anything.
Well, we know that Joe is resigning, and this is his last meeting with us, so thank you for your service. I did get an answer finally today from the state election commission and the county, Beth Bacon-Chew. And here's how this will work. Once this person, whoever you appoint, if the council should agree and that person is appointed, what we'll do is after May 1st, after because 3 of you are up for 4-year terms, right? Or 3 of those positions.
There are
up for
3
4-year
positions open.
3 positions open for 4-year terms, and those will close March 1st. Whoever has applied to be on the ballot in November, that will be the deadline for that. For this one, what we do is once May 1st hits, we will report that to Beth, and she will add a 2-year term, and those deadlines will be for incumbents, July 15th, which there would only be one. Whoever is appointed would be the only incumbent for that position. And then August 1st for non-incumbents. So just to clear a little bit up on that, I think originally they had told us people had to apply right away. I think there was some confusion. Beth meant to be talking about the 3 4-year terms when she was explaining not the 2-year terms. So there is still time for people to do that.
So
I
there'll
just
be
wanted to clear
separate
that up.
deadlines for that one position.
For just that one, yep, just for that 1 2-year position.
Okay.
Yep.
And to be
So
clear,
I
we're
wanted to clear that
Yeah.
up before you went into that. So.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I think the process was that we had advertised it per state and local statutes we did receive some interest, and those were passed on to you, so
right.
I guess you will make a recommendation, and
Right.
if the council agrees, that person will be.
Okay. Yeah, so we're making a recommendation for council's consideration.
What was the process?
So we had a couple people apply. I did include Councilman Bob Olson as the vice mayor. We went through applications. In this case, it was a couple of people that we know very well, both very qualified candidates, both very big supporters of the community, active in the community, and this is one of those decisions that's kind of tough because you end up having to tell somebody no, and I think both people would be very deserving and both people would be very capable of serving on the city council. So I did involve the vice mayor so that we could have more input than just myself on it. And I have not talked to either Councilman Radcliffe or Councilman Sherman about either of the applicants or any recommendation prior to this. So
Did you interview the candidates?
we didn't interview the candidates, but I did speak to both candidates. We felt like we knew the people well enough. They're both well established in the community. It wasn't a situation where we didn't know the people or didn't know enough about the people, I think, or didn't feel comfortable that we knew enough about the people. So with that in mind, like I said, not an easy decision. I think both people very, very qualified, very deserving. I think either or both, if they choose to run for election, would stand a very good chance of being elected as well. And I would certainly encourage both of them to do that as well. But at the end of the day, you know, we have to pick somebody, and I am going to recommend Marva Ellwanger for the position to be filled until such time as we have the election. Really, the only differentiating feature was the number of different boards and activities, just the extensive time period of service to the community. I think that she's demonstrated over quite a few number of years, I think speaks volumes for her commitment to the city. And I also appreciated our other candidate with their service to the community and what they're doing, and I certainly encourage them to move forward and keep pursuing that as well. So at this time, I have a recommendation for Marva Ellwanger. It's up to the council whether to vote in support of that or not. If not, I'll make another recommendation.
I have another question. Do I vote on this?
You do not,
Why not?
because the statute specifically says the remaining council persons.
But aren't I?
You are not.
I remain until.
No, it talks about having, you are taking it says the person who resigns, and then it talks about the remaining persons. So the statute is pretty clear that you are not the remaining council. You're the person that resigned. So they'll need 3 out of 4 to not have a split vote.
I'm remaining in my seat.
Doesn't count.
I don't care. I just think it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and it is something I wanted Jay to clarify and make sure that, we were following it to the letter of the law. He did specifically note that, so.
Yeah, I mean, all I heard was remaining, and so that's open to
Yeah.
interpretation.
But it's the sentence that comes after that, or the sentence that comes before that, that says, this is where. I know. And I
don't like arguing. I always.
Yeah.
I always try to go along.
So,
Okay.
Okay.
So no, at this time, I'm making a recommendation for the appointment of Marva Ellwanger. A vote in favor would be yes, a vote against would be no, and I would ask for roll call, clerk.
Olson?
Yes.
Okay, do I include
No.
Joe? Okay. Sherman?
Yes.
Galloway?
Yes.
Radcliffe?
Yes.
Motion passes 4 in favor, 0 against, so we will welcome Marva to the city council.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, welcome. Make sure that we get your contact info to Lori so that she can start forwarding any information, packets,
We got lots.
such of that nature. And at that point, I would also again encourage anybody who's interested in serving on city council to consider it. We do have a non-incumbent deadline of March 1st. It's a very worthwhile experience. I think Joe would agree. And we certainly would like to see. We certainly would like to see as many people as possible participating in the local government. Jay, do you want to do the swearing in now then?
I do. I have that ready to go. Do you want to step up here? Yeah, I think that works. So I'm going to give you this because it's easier to follow that at the same time as I.
They didn't do that with me the first time.
I'm nice.
You guys got off easy.
So if you'll raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Margaret Elwinger, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign or domestic,
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to do the same,
That I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
and without mental reservation or for purpose of evasion.
and without mental reservation or for purpose of evasion,
And that I will faithfully and impartially perform
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
the duties of the office of City Council Person
the duties of the office of City Council Person
according to law and to the best of my ability.
according to law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear
And I do further swear
that I do not advocate,
that I do not advocate,
nor am I a member
nor am I a member
of any political party or organization that advocates,
nor that am I a member or
of any political party
of political party
or organization
or
that advocates
organization that advocates
the overthrow of the government of the United States
the overthrow of the government of the United States
or of this state by force or violence.
or this state by force or violence,
And that during such time as I am in this position,
and that during such time as I am in this position,
I will not advocate
I will not advocate
nor become a member of any political party
nor become a member of any political party
or organization that advocates
or organization that advocates
the overthrow of the government of the United States
the overthrow of the government of the United States
or of this state by force or violence.
or of this state by force or violence.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I need you to sign.
Yeah.
Grab it. There we go.
So with that, I don't know if you switch seats or,
I think it's probably.
I did the past when it was me.
Barbara, can we be in touch?
So we'll ask you to switch seats. Yeah.
Set by Jeff.
I know, I guess I was in a similar situation as an appointee, and yeah, we swapped seats in the middle of the meeting. Yeah, wasn't fun. I left and somebody else went up. A couple of times. So, again, thank you to Councilman Arterburn for your years of dedication, years of service, always being willing to speak your mind. It's always good to have people asking questions, and sincerely, that is very much appreciated.
Well, I hope that somebody carries on the tradition.
I hope so too. And with that, welcome to Marvin. Item number 10, last item of business, city manager's report.
I had a couple things. One, I wanted to thank the council. Earlier today, over the noon hour, we had a planning session and just kind of an update session of what all is going on in the city. And I appreciate all your input and your time to come and do that. And I want to thank Autumn because soup was a fantastic choice for lunch on a 2-degree day. That worked out great. But thank you, really, thank you for coming and thank you for all your input. That's very, very helpful. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is Joe is retiring, so we thank him for his service. He specifically stated, without any reservation, that he did not want the plaque. No plaques. If you got a plaque, it was going to upset him, so we did not get you a plaque. But we did get you something.
Mr. Orderberg?
I want it, Is it edible? Oh, well, that's different.
I'll take that.
That's different.
I got you in a minute. It does have a small.
It's got a black.
It's gonna go this wall, so nobody will have to see that.
Cool. Well, thank you.
So we have something for you to hang on your office wall.
I was gonna say,
Put that on.
That's better than a plaque.
So, thank you.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good luck, Marta. Brad? Sir. You missed my wisecracks.
good luck, sir. Andrew?
Joe? God bless you.
There you go. Been fun.
Very much appreciate it. Anything else, Dave?
No, that was my final.
Okay. Anything else, staff? Chief?
Nothing.
Okay. Colonel? Nothing. Michael, we heard from?
I would like to also thank Joe for his years of service. It's been great working with you over the last 9 years or whatever I've been in this position, and thank you very much for all the support you've given us.
Lane, anything?
We go live with Invoice Cloud tomorrow, so.
Oh, boy.
That's happening.
Big day. It's D-Day tomorrow.
It is.
D-Day. Okay. Tom, anything with parks?
No, just thank you, Joe, for your service and welcome, Marta.
So you'll bring
Okay.
I'm
Audit, keep
scheduled
everybody
to
in
be up
line?
here at 9, but
Okay.
I'll have to,
It's a big
depends
job.
on whether I get back to
Okay.
my office before.
We'll go this way. Marv, any comments?
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I will do my best.
Appreciate it. Brad?
Yeah, we're certainly going to miss you, Joe.
Right.
But also welcome, Marvin. Looking forward to working with you. We mentioned chamber bus. They're on cards now. How fabulous.
Digital cards.
You can get them right on the chamber side, I imagine.
You can literally click a link and purchase them.
That was awesome.
Yep.
And then if you're hungry tomorrow night, the Elks is serving hamburgers again. Wonderful hamburgers. And there's also a Sydney Downtown Lighting Committee meeting that takes place there at 6:30, which is not affiliated with the city in any way. We are just a bunch of people trying to make the city beautiful with the lights. More beautiful, excuse me.
Yeah.
And that meeting is at the Elks. And then,
Improving community one light at a time.
beautiful.
I mentioned it before. Now you write it down? Okay.
I'm always listening to you.
He said more in that time than he said all the other words combined.
Yeah. We're working on it. Bob, anything?
I do not have anything, but welcome. And Joe, me and you are still going.
Thank Joe. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah, that's it. And
Enjoy retirement.
I'll echo those. It's, it's enjoyed having you on the council. You're a good voice for the council and always a good spokesman for the community. So,
Thank you.
very much appreciate it. And with that, we will adjourn.